Okay. Good morning, everybody. Thank you very much for joining us today. Today's shiur should be Lil Nishmas Menachem ben Yisrael Yaakov and Refuah Shalema Meshulam ben Sarah Rachel, as well as Refuah Shalema Rechama Rivka Bas Rachel. So yesterday we finished off talking about how there's three different sections of an act, whether it's a mitzvah or an avera. You have the mindset to do so, and then the planning portion, and the act of doing the mitzvah or avera. Today we're going to talk about how bitachon regarding a mitzvah differs from bitachon regarding material matters. Now, we spoke about the first three categories of bitachon in this section in Perek Daled. We dealt with bitachon in regard to one's well-being, and it talked about his social life, his financial, and his health. And well, we all know that Hashem controls all our personal matters, but we are obligated to do our status. We spoke about that, to remain healthy, to earn an income, and so forth. He adds that this requires us to choose what seems to be the best path in each situation. So we spoke over the last couple of weeks where a person who is looking for work, his ishtadlus, he should seek out work that fits his personality. It said that a physical person, a physically able person should seek out work that a physically able person should be able to do. Someone who is good with numbers might want to be an accountant or something else. And so seemingly, this is the very same approach that we just set forth in regarding mitzvos, right? So in mitzvos, what do? We say, hey, look, let me pick and choose something, and if it works, great. Just like hishtadlus with when it comes to our basic sustenance and to our health. And so you might think that it's the same exact hishtadlus. So what the Shaar Habitachon is going to explain over here, that it's not the same exact hishtadlus at all. And if it were the same hishtadlus, then it would all go into that same category. It wouldn't be a fourth category. It would go into one of the first three categories. And so that's where we begin today. The difference between the service of Hashem, which is when you're doing mitzvahs, and the involvement in other endeavors, which is when you're doing hishtadlus for work or for your health, in regard to relying on Hashem, in that regarding those other matters where we wish to invest our effort and means of it to achieve our goal, work, whatever it is, health and stuff like that, loy besiba minasibas mebalade she'erasa. Loy niglu lanu efnai hatoiv v'hara mesiba benasibas mebalade she'erasa. It is not clear to us which particular means is better, one more effective than others. Meaning, when we set out to do hishtadlus, to do work, we don't know that if we choose to be a doctor, it would be more beneficial to us than being a lawyer or to be a contractor or some other job, right? So we're just going out and, we're kind of blind. That's where the bitachon is a bit different. Because we have to go out and just have bitachon that Hashem is going to guide me in the right direction. Nor do we know the greater potential or the loss or the other disadvantages to one compared to the others. Meaning, we don't know if we get into one industry or one business versus another. We don't know what the disadvantages are to us or the pros for us. Because again, Hashem tells us to do hishtadlus. He doesn't give us a clear direction. Just says, you go do hishtadlus. Kiloi amdanu al eza melocha min hamelochos shetoiva lana v'yosera. For we cannot accurately determine in advance which of the various means of work that we're going to endeavor is good for us or more fitting than others. Levakashas hater v'habrias v'atoiv, in our quest for sustenance and health and other material benefits. In the realm of business, for example, we don't know with which merchandise, which route to travel, and which of the many possible courses of worldly action we will succeed. Shenis galgal bahem. Once we get involved in them, the same applies in regards to seeking the cure for illness. we only get involved and then we kind of see what's going on. We want to kind of see the benefits, the pros and the cons of an industry. When we're seeking help from a doctor, we kind of get involved, and once we see what's working, what's not working, thus it behooves us to rely on Hashem. Over there, we really have to rely on Hashem because we're blind to it. Hashem said do ishtalos, but we don't know exactly what's going on. Both in regard to choosing a means of endeavor and also in regard to carrying it out. That this, not only must we rely on Hashem to make the path that we choose to succeed, that whatever we choose, that it works out, because again, we're going into this blindly, we must also rely on Him initially to help us choose which path it is. So not only we ask Hashem, whichever profession we get into, to help us, to make sure that we're successful, but also we ask Hashem, and that Hashem help us choose the right profession. And accordingly, we should daven to Hashem to give us insight. And by the way, davening, it says over here in the Cliff Notes, prayer is a big part of bitachon. It actually goes hand in hand. Prayer is a function of bitachon, and one who places his trust in Hashem will daven for His assistance and then rely on Him to help. To choose the path and best for him. Aval. Now we're going to the part of, now we're talking about how bitachon regarding mitzvahs is different from what we just spoke about, material matters. Aval avodas habayir yizborach eneino kain. But when it comes to serving Hashem, for that in the area He has already instructed us on to approach the path to follow. What does that mean? Hashem gave us a guidebook. He gave us mitzvos. He told us which averos to stay away from. Hashem was very, very clear with us in what He wants us to do and what He prohibits us to do. Therefore, it is very different than when we go do a shtados where we're unsure of what to do. When it comes to mitzvahs and averos, we know exactly what we are allowed to and what we're not to do. And therefore, the bitachon, when it comes to doing a mitzvah and avera, is extremely different than when it comes to doing our shtados in worldly matters. He has commanded us to choose the right path, and has given us the ability to make this choice ourselves, as explained above. We spoke a few days ago, we talked about bechira, and that's what it boils down to. Now, there's a second part to this. I want to get to that on Monday, but we love Fridays because we get to talk about the parsha, and hopefully the parsha correlates together with what we're learning. And this week, I have two little pieces that you guys should even take home and say it at your table. First one is, it's never too late. We spoke about yesterday that there's three portions of doing a mitzvah and avera, and when it came to the avera, we said that first you have to think about it, then you have to plan on it, and then you have to act out on it. And we spoke that initially the Rav Av suggested that when you go to do a avera, even though you fail at completing the mission physically, that you still get punished the same way by a mitzvah, that machshava kamaisa, that if you set out to do it, even though you failed, you get the full mitzvah, full schar, that initially we thought that by avera is the same thing. But we came to the conclusion yesterday that it's not that way. That if somebody doesn't at the end fulfill the act of doing the avera, he doesn't get that kind of punishment. He gets a small punishment, very minuscule. And so in this week's parsha, we talk about something that's never too late. What we see over here, the Rebbe tells us, it's actually the Lubavitcher piece, and I loved it actually. The end of a person's life, he is brought before in Shemayim, he goes in there, and they will ask him, why didn't you learn Torah? So he's going to say, well, what should I have done? I'm a handsome man. I was unable to control my desires, and therefore I succumbed to those averos. Life is full of pleasures. How could I pass them up and study Torah? So in Shemayim, they're going to tell him like this. Your excuse is not acceptable. Why? Are you more handsome than Yosef HaTzadik? We know that Yosef HaTzadik was an extremely handsome person. And Yosef HaTzadik was a tzaddik. And he was able to hold back from doing averos. We see that after Yosef HaTzadik was sold to Potiphar's wife, actually tried to seduce him almost every single day. She would change her clothing 3 times a day, and she tried to seduce him. And every single time, Yosef overcame this evil inclination, and he wouldn't even look at her. It's very difficult to understand when we say Yosef was a huge tzaddik. Why? Because the Gemara talks about one time where Yosef went into the house of Potiphar to do some work. And one of the opinion we understand that he did intend to give into Potiphar's wife's advances. He gave into it. He was physically unable to. Suddenly, it says over there, suddenly he had a vision of his father, it shook him up, and he ran out of the house. So, how could the Talmud, how could the Gemara consider Yosef to be this model citizen when it comes to tzidkis if he did succumb to this problem? He might not have actually done it, but he did give in. At the end, he ran away. So he says like this, Lubavitch Rebbe said like this, when the evil inclination grabs a hold of someone and he's caught in the moment, his adrenaline is rushing. And it's almost impossible to stop what you're doing. You get into this spot, you're just in it, and you can't back out. A person says to himself, I already started, I'm in it, it makes no difference anymore if I continue. However, Yosef was able to stop himself. He was able to pull back. And let's forget about what I did till now. Now is a new minute. I know I went and I want to do this Avera, but right now, this moment, what does Hashem want from me? Hashem wants me to do good. And that's what Yosef HaTzadik did. And that's what makes him, and that's what elevates him to such a high level of being a tzaddik, because he was brought down so hard into almost succumbing to his Averos, yet he pulled himself out. And that's the hardest place. The hardest place is to be right in front of it. You're about to do an Avera, and then you drag yourself out of it. You get this Hira Tshuva. It doesn't matter what situation a person is in or what he's doing wrong until now. It's never ever too late to change. Right now is a new day, it's a new moment, it's a new minute. You have a brand new fresh page. You can start over. That's the first piece I want to talk about on this week's Parsha. I thought was beautiful. The second one was looking for signs, and I thought this spoke very, very well to our shir. Behold, a caravan of Ishmaelites was coming for Gilead, their camels bearing spices, balsam, and lotus, on their way to bring them down to Egypt. What happened? The Shvatim took Yosef after he messed with them a little bit, his fault, and they wanted to kill him. Instead, they decided they're going to sell him. What happened? Rashi explains that the Ishmaelite caravans normally carrying foul-smelling spices, but in order to spear Yosef HaTzadik, Hashem made it that this particular caravan was carrying fragrant spices. We learn from this great reward from the righteous that the righteous enjoy. Can I ask you guys something? Imagine you get arrested, you go into prison, you go into maximum security, where the worst of the worst people are barred up. In the van, in the bus, the officer sees that you're shivering in your pants. And he says, whoa. Don't you worry. Everything is going to be good. And he looks at him, how so? He goes, I just put brand new car fresheners in here. Your way to prison is going to smell so nice in this bus. You should be excited and happy. The last thing you care about is what smell the bus has on your way to a prison that houses murderers. So what are we saying over here? That Yosef HaTzadik, Hashem sent this big nace that he has all of a sudden, instead of foul-smelling caravans, it smells nice? Whoop-de-doo! He's going to be sold as a slave. He's sold as a slave. He's facing some of the worst parts of life. Yosef was being sold as a slave. The last thing he cared about was the aroma, the smell that was going on. He brings another little example. It says, a young boy wakes up in a car with a complete stranger. And he realized that he's been kidnapped. He starts crying for his parents. He's screaming, where are my parents? And the driver just ignores him. And he keeps screaming even louder. And so the driver stops the car. And he says to the boy, we're going to eat now. And the little boy opens up for the little boy a platter. The boy is shocked. On the platter, he realizes that the food that he has there is the exact food that his mother serves him at home. His favorite dinner that he ever gets, that's what's on the platter. So, in the exact same way, that moment, that boy has in his mind, he says, wait a minute, maybe I'm not being kidnapped, because something's off over here, right? If I'm being kidnapped, why all of a sudden do I have this smell and this look and I see my mother's food? Yosef's brothers wanted to execute him. Instead, they threw him into a pit. Feeling abandoned and lost, he was sold to a caravan of Ishmaelites who always had foul-smelling wagons, but today they had perfume-smelling stuff. Why was Yosef so happy at this moment? It's for the same reason why we have to take every single good thing in our life and take it and understand that that's a gift from Hashem. Yosef HaTzadik understood when he smelled that beautiful smell that Hashem gave him that wink. Hashem smiled at him and Hashem said, don't worry, Yosef. I know it doesn't seem great right now, but I got you. Every single day in our life, we find that we can go through a hard day, a hard week, a hard month, even worse. We have such a difficult life. But Hashem sends us these little tidbits, super insignificant. A little smell of roses. And it's just for Hashem to wink at us and say, I got you. I got you guys. Don't you worry. Everything's going to be all right. I know you're being sold into slavery, but understand this is part of the bigger picture. The Yidden are going to need you to be later on the Prince of Egypt, and so that we can be helped as a nation to get out of exile. We have to look at the small, tiny things in our life that might seem like a miracle, but a tiny miracle. And even in the times that we're struggling so much, and we get a little smell of roses, that's Hashem telling us it's going to be okay. Thank you everybody for joining us this week. Thank you so much for giving me the chizuk, the energy to prepare every single day. It means so much to me. Have a wonderful Shabbos, and I love you all.